Hi, welcome to the Crafty Mariana Podcast. I am your host, Mariana, former corporate marketing girly turned crafting workshop host. And if you ever thought, can my crafts actually make money? Then this is the show for you. Each episode, I share stories from creative entrepreneurs who dare to think a little bit different and went beyond the make and sell model, along with lessons from my own journey building a six-figure workshop business. You can expect honest conversations about what it really takes to build a creative business. So grab yourself a cup of tea and let's dive in. To another Crafty Mariana Podcast episode. Today we are here with Tayler from Happy Medium, which is a super cool, concept studio in New York City where they do it's kind of like a restaurant, but instead of ordering food, you order out experiences, which is just so awesome. Like, it's exactly what I would have wanted my business to kind of become, but things went a bit sideways. And so I'm so excited to get to know Tayler more. I'm sure there will be so many people in the community that will learn from your experience. So without much further introduction, I will pass it on to Tayler to kind of introduce herself and explain what she does and how it came about of her running a creative space.
Amazing. Well, I'm really excited to be here. So thank you so much for having me. I'm Tayler. I'm one half of the founding team behind Happy Medium. We call ourselves, it's totally right. Things have changed so much. We've added so many things, but at our heart, we call ourselves an arts club for casual artists. We're located in New York City, and we've grown from it started in our living room to now we have 3 locations and a pop-up at the moment in New York, and would love to kind of grow beyond New York. And we host all kinds of things. Our specialty is really in what we call casual artists and specifically adults. And yeah, it all started in 2019. Honestly, probably before then even, but in 2019, my co-founder, who's also my husband, and I just found ourselves in kind of a lull in life and feeling uninspired and didn't love our careers. We didn't go to art school. That's probably the number one question we get asked is well, what art school did you go to? We did go to art school. I was working in e-commerce and he was working in technology at the time, had been a banker before, and we just felt lost. I think a lot of people feel that, kind of late 20s, what am I doing in life? And in that moment, we got back into art in a really organic way. I think his mom sent me a watercolor set or something, and really just enjoyed doing it, and not in a way where I wanted to then go start a side hustle and sell my work on Etsy, which is ironic because we did end up making a career in art. But it was so just this is fun. And it had been years since we just had fun making art with no pressure, no expectations, not needing to share it. We're all so hyper connected, and there's always this oh, well, are you going to post it or, whatever. And we were just doing it for fun out of our apartment. And what we noticed was that our life was just measurably better. And we wondered if this was something maybe that our friends would be interested in. And at the time, none of our friends were hosting art craft nights or anything like that. So we turned our living room into an art studio. This was again in 2019, around the summer of 2019, because for ourselves, even in New York, there's no space. We've lived here for 12, 13 years and still live in the classic New York shoebox apartment. So we really had to decide with the space we had, what did we want to make out of it? And, before we had a couch and a TV. And so we would come home, we'd make dinner and we'd watch TV. And we were you know what, that's not really what we want to be spending our time on. So if we turn our living room into this art studio, maybe we'll make more art. And that totally happened and was totally part of our process of getting back into art. Rhett got really into woodworking and he was building things for our apartment and all this stuff. So it was the perfect place to host our friends for these art parties. And that's what we called them. And it was incredible. We had known these people forever and really enjoyed, spending time with them. But for the first time, we weren't going out to drinks and dinner. We were just making things together. And it was such an interesting, different side of our friends and different conversations and really meaningful connections in a way that we hadn't had in a while with them. And that kind of gave us this idea that oh, okay, this isn't happening that much. As adults, there was nowhere we could go. There was figure drawing that happened in the city, but it was very much for artists, or there were co-working studios that also had art spaces, but as casual artists, we didn't want to shell out $200-300 to go, and also it was all kind of based around this professional kind of artist track and this expectation that somehow you're kind of earning money from your art. So we were well, there's a gap here, a gap between kids and then this casual artist maybe we could fill that. So we started out of our apartment. We were super excited about the idea after seeing our friends kind of respond to it. We didn't really have like a specific game plan. And I guess, in fact, in the beginning, we felt like we probably would sell art supplies. I think this was because of me coming from a product background. I was in fashion my whole career and was a merchant. So I bought products and sold products and kind of worked with, consumers in terms of what they were buying and selling. And so I was like, there's no cool art supply brands. Like, we could be a cool art supply brand that's just branded art supplies and like maybe the classes online to help you get back into it. So that was our first thought. And along the way, kind of just by accident, needing to make money, we like went full in on this, by the way. We like liquidated our savings accounts. I quit my job. It was really a leap of faith. One I'm really glad I took, but it was a really big risk for us. And we just wanted to kind of go all in. We really believed in it. And so this was the fall of 2019 and we needed to make money. And so along the way, we started hosting creative events. Like, we loved figure drawing. So we started hosting our own. We started kind of hosting these art parties, but for other brands. We had friends in the city who had their own pop-ups or their own brands. And we would just go in basically and be the ones to like
facilitate.
Yeah, host all of the creative stuff. Exactly. And like, that's how we were making money at first. And they were paying us. And a lot of times they weren't even paying us. We were just doing it to like get our brand out there and like, learn things and whatever. But we at least had like a pretty solid, for the first half of 2020, we were like pretty decently booked for a brand new brand, to do this thing. And then the idea was that we would keep launching products and like be selling products. And then obviously COVID hit and everybody went into lockdown. And so we sold some like sketchbook kits here and there. And we would do like drops for people who are in the city and kind of, isolated. But obviously we couldn't host these events anymore for a long time. So we stopped doing the event stuff, and I got a side job which turned into a full-time job. So there was we still were working on Happy Medium, but we had to kind of work with the world that was around us. And then coming out of that in 2021, things were starting to open up, and we had seen kind of this behavior shift throughout COVID that really brought kind of our version of the world, or like our belief of what people would want out of the world, up by 10 years, where people all of a sudden had time at home to reconnect with art and reconnect with their creativity and try things again and kind of slow down. So while COVID was like horrible, it definitely did introduce a lot more adults kind of back into their creativity in a way that, like, when we came along and then opened our first location in 2021, I think they were really primed and looking for, number one, connection. We had all just been isolated for such a long time, but then number two, also creative connection and kind of like rethinking how they wanted to spend their time and where they wanted to spend their time and how they wanted to spend their time. And this is like what we were able to kind of provide for them. So that brings us to the summer of 2021. We opened the space where I am now. It's kind of like our flagship. It's 49 Market Street. It's in the Lower East Side of New York City. And this was also a big risk gamble for us. We had never operated a space before. Like, I literally had only worked in e-commerce basically for the last decade almost of my career. Totally foreign. And we convinced the landlord to give us a 3-month pop-up lease. It was just supposed to be like a quick 3-month thing to test the waters, to see maybe we could host our own art events, these figure drawings we were doing for brands and their spaces. Maybe they can come here. A lot of people had like given up their leases over COVID or didn't have spaces anymore. So we were like, yeah, it could be cool. Let's see what happens. And it was immediately very successful, which we are so lucky. And we started with figure drawing. And that's still one of our most popular events. We host it every single week, multiple times a week. And we also introduced the art cafe, which is just like a restaurant, like you said, but instead of ordering food, you order art experiences. But everything about the experience is the same as a restaurant. You come in, you're greeted by a host, you're sat at a table, you're presented with a menu. Everybody can order something different. We serve it to you at the table. And then when you're done, you leave and we clean everything up after you. And this was definitely kind of like the linchpin for the business to get things rolling, because it was such a unique idea. As far as I know, we are one of the first, if not the first, to kind of serve art experiences in this way. And it was so immediately accessible for people. So not only from like a price point, because the price point for art cafes starts at $15, but also for anybody who maybe would feel not welcome in an art studio or even nervous to go to an art studio. If you put cafe and suddenly kind of the experience is like a cafe, everybody has been to a cafe or a restaurant, how to behave, what's expected. We kind of take the guesswork out of it, which was critical because we're already asking adults to do something really scary, which is to make art and kind of like, put themselves out there creatively. So the more that we can kind of relax the environment around them and make it something expected, something they don't have to like guess or be, even concerned about, has been really successful for us. So that was in 2021. Since then, we've just kind of kept growing diligently. We've opened a pottery studio. We've gotten into woodworking and woodworking classes. We opened a second location that's an art cafe in Brooklyn. And then we just opened a really big workshop in Williamsburg that is half like our own workshop, because it takes so many people and so much production to kind of like maintain these spaces and experiences and products and things like that. So it's like our own personal, or like, Happy Medium's personal woodworking workshop and pottery studio, materials lab, because we do actually make our own art supplies. But then we're also opening it up to host these public events on the weekends that are morphing into what's called a build a home workshop, where you can come in and kind of build anything you want from your home, whether it's something that we have designed and kind of have prefab for you, or you can even send in your own designs. And that's kind of, our thesis is always like, how do we help adults be more creative and like act on their creativity? And so we just listen and then try to make experiences that are super easy and digestible, basically.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, it sounds quite a journey. Like it definitely, I guess the concept definitely like morphed and changed as you like started, with thinking of products and what it is now. That is so awesome. I like pinpoint a few things that you mentioned throughout, your explanation that I'm really curious to ask you more about. And I guess the first thing is around like in the different studios that you run now. So you opened first one, and then how long was it that you opened the second? And how did you choose kind of either the location or why to open the second one? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So we opened the first one in the summer of 2021. We opened the second one officially in March of 2024. Okay. So it was almost like 2.5 years in between. In between there, we took over this whole building. So we had started on the second floor, and then we moved into the first floor. So we kind of had like, it's baby steps, right? Like we started second floor, moved into the first floor. We put our pottery studio there. We also got the basement at that point, which customers don't go in, but that was important to running a pottery studio. You need kilns and you need space for pottery to dry. And there's a lot of like tech work that happens. And so we could not have done that without having the basement space. So there was a big pause in between. When we got this space, the building was for sale. And so that's one thing with pottery studios and just art studios generally, it's like you're so much at the mercy of your landlord. And so we were, for a long time, for almost 2 years, we were basically told that like the building was for sale. You'll probably need to leave in 6 weeks. And so we would hear that every now and again. And it really put a pause on the business. Like we were growing so much. We grew as much as we could within these 4 walls, but then we were also looking for other spaces in the city. And like, it's so difficult to convince landlords. We actually, New York Times just wrote about this type of business model and how they're profitable and like great for neighborhoods. And so maybe that will change. But at the time, it was really difficult to approach landlords with this like baby business idea. And they're like, oh, well, do you have a liquor license? And we're like, no. And they're like, well, how are you going to make money? And we're like, we do, we promise. Anyway, we were able to essentially secure a partner who was able to secure the building for us. And that's what made us really invest in the business and we knew that we would not be kicked out. We basically have like first right of refusal. We have like a very secure lease and things like that. And so that is what helped us grow here. And that is when we were kind of maxed out at this building. We were still sold out all the time, which is a great problem, kind of a great problem to have. It's a great business problem that you have so much demand, and it's a terrible customer experience, and also kind of antithetical to who we are as a brand. Like we want to be there for people who have just like a shitty day at work and then want to go make some art and like relax and unplug. And what we were finding was that in our busiest seasons, which are definitely when it's cold and people want to be inside and like doing things, we would have like a 3, 4, 5 week wait list to get in. And we did not like that because it was very much like not who we wanted to be as a brand. So that happened 2 years in a row. And we were like, we need another place that we can help kind of alleviate this demand and be, the goal is to have room all the time and to let anybody who just needs to come that day be able to come. So we decided to, and again, it was another big bet because we had only ever run one location and only for a few years. So we, it takes investment, as like in capital up front to be able to open these spaces. So we decided to open a second location, and we looked around. We had a couple of ideas. So I think something magical happened with this first location. We fell in love with the building and the space. And I think for our brand and what we're trying to do, the space is really important to how we make people feel when you walk in. And so that it kind of the space led. We didn't strategically pick our neighborhood per se, although it's happened to be like a very hot and up and coming neighborhood. So that's been amazing. And as we've been here, so many people have kind of moved in around us. And I think that was like luck. That was not very strategic. But for the second one, we were like, okay, now we know, we pull almost all of our own traffic at this location where people are coming specifically to come here. But we did consider like foot traffic. We also considered proximity to this location. Of course, the building or the feature. And so that at the end is what really won out, because one of the things that we wanted, if we were going to have a second location in the city, we wanted to have some sort of outdoor presence, because in the summer, all we wanted to do was go sit outside and paint. And we can't do that in this location's amazing, but there's no outdoor space at all, like no sidewalk seating, there's nothing in the back, nothing. And so we were really hopeful that with our second location, we would find somewhere that at least had a patio or like a wraparound kind of porch situation where we could put people outside. And we got so fortunate with this incredible space. It's in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, which is also happens to be kind of difficult to get to from our first location. So in terms of like customer base and where they are, we definitely made that way more accessible, made ourselves more accessible for customers who lived kind of in that area, because it would take them a while to get to us. And we also got a fabulous garden. So we got the garden is as big as the building, and that's exactly what we wanted. And so we kind of consider that almost like our summer like retreat, kind of, even though it's a 15-minute drive from here. And we turned the garden. It had been a bar before, and it was Palm Springs themed, and it was like concrete and cabanas and like very much bar vibes. And what we did was we totally like renovated the back and turned it into what we hope feels more like a European like villa or something like that. We want you to kind of be transported, somewhere else when you're there. And that location has been incredible. It's not only is it a great space during our busiest season where we have, local Brooklyn locals go and kind of take some pressure off of this location, but also in the summer, it's awesome because we can offer outdoor classes, outdoor figure drawing, outdoor seating for art cafe. And it's really become this just like beautiful. We've kind of dabbled in gardening and like, there's a lot of overlap with like gardening and art, and we don't really have like a customer facing class or anything like that on it yet, but we are as a team kind of learning as we're there and figuring out kind of the garden aspect. And we try to incorporate a lot of the like natural stuff into art at that location as much as we can.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, I've been dying to go to New York for ages now. It's definitely going to happen next year, but that sounds so awesome. There's so many.
Amazing.
Yeah, I will absolutely. Like I have sort of a list of I guess like 6 or 7 spots that I'll definitely have to go to, and all the happy medium spots are on that list. I'll have to go to all of them.
Yay.
I've got a few more questions, like also based on what you like just said, but going back a little bit of what you said previously, because I still had like some questions. When you mentioned like how you have sort of your events like figure drawing, and then the art sort of experiences as a restaurant came after that, and that you serve them like kind of exactly how a restaurant would be. And I'm kind of curious, like I'm trying to sort of visualize how that would happen in practice. And do you like create kits around a specific, like, watercolors, you create a kit for that and people order and they kind of follow the kit? Or is it more free flowing where you're just providing some materials? How, like, is it, you know what I mean? Like, is it more structured or,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. It's totally unstructured, which half the people love and half the people are freaked out when they're here. But here's the great thing. So we have instructed classes, like fully separate. We offer those on the weekend. So it's like, if you do want hands-on instruction with a teacher, like come to those. The magic thing about art and creativity, and kind of like what we're here to prove, is that everyone's creative. And even if you haven't dabbled with art or creativity in a while, that doesn't mean it's not there. And it just means that you need to re-access it. And so something magic happens when you put art supplies in front of people and just say, okay, go. And at first they're like, wait, what? And is there something? And so we do have some guidance. So for example, we have like one pagers with like super simple tricks and tips to get you started. My team's incredible. They all know kind of like the basics of tips, but we certainly we don't have time. And like at our busiest, we'll have, 70 people in this room and there's 6-ish to 7 people working. And so they just could not possibly do like individual instruction for everybody. And so it kind of, if you're, and I work at the art cafe still to this day occasionally. And like, it's this magic thing where everybody comes in. We also see people all at the same time. So like everybody comes in, they're all sat, we take their order, we bring them their stuff. And then like 15 minutes later, everyone is so locked in and like in the zone. And of course, people are like looking for inspiration on their phones. We have a library actually of books that people can take and bring to their table that are both like reference material, but also there's some instruction, but it's very minimal. But I actually think that's more fun because what you're saying then to customers is like, play with your own creativity and like, there's kind of no rules. And, if they don't like the dish they ordered, we'll swap it out. Like, we kind of we operate really as like a hospitality company in that sense of like, we want this to really feel like a fine dining experience almost, in terms of like how much you're supported. But no, they just run with it and it works. And that's the thing. And like, we tell people like, you know what? Just try it, give yourself 10 minutes. And then it's hard for us to even predict. Like, I mean, some people run away with their imagination and what they're trying to do. And like, they have these stories about, especially with like clay, I'll walk by and this person is making this like insane clay masterpiece. And I'm like, what is this? And I could never guess the backstories of like, oh, well, I was inspired by this and then this happened and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, it works out. So it's very, very, very uninstructed, at least for the art cafe portion. And I think that actually adds to the fun.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And do you give people like a time that they can be there for, or is it like time bound, I suppose?
Yeah, it is when we are super busy. So if we don't need their table, each seating is at least 2 hours. So you have at least 2 hours to be here. In our busiest season, we typically, and even now, like at our busiest time slots, which happen to be like weekends, midday weekends, we need the tables back. So we drop the checks just like a restaurant, and kind of like usher people out that way. But we love when we don't need to do that because we've had people stay for, 6 hours just in their zone and whatever, which is wonderful. But yeah, it's 2 hours officially. And then if we can, we obviously love for people to stay
and do you
longer.
operate it as well? Like, because you mentioned being a cafe, because I guess you've come from e-commerce, so I don't know if you ever like worked hospitality, but do you offer, I guess, like, actual like food and coffees and drinks? Yeah.
So I, and also my co-founder, we both worked in hospitality, all in high school and throughout college, like waitered forever. And so that was the most relevant experience we had to bring to the table, honestly, when we opened. And so we do have snacks and drinks. We don't have like a food and bev license or anything like that. So it's all prepackaged goods. It's like fancy snacks and like really great canned beverages and things like that and bottled beverages, and no alcohol, which also started, there's so many here, at least like paint and sips, where it is more kind of about the alcohol than it is about the art. And it's just, bottomless mimosas and whatever. And like, we originally didn't have alcohol because we were a pop-up and it would have been so expensive and like ridiculous to try to get an alcohol license. But now what we found is that actually like we kind of prefer that. Like there are other places that you can go if you just want to like get drunk and make art. And we find that it's really cool actually to have a place that's like not about that. And yeah, the snacks and drinks are great. They're like great, to help you with your creativity and your fuel, and they're kind of silly and fun. And some of them are more kid snacks, and then some of them are like really nice, elevated, like, or the Swedish gummies we import are like so great and yummy. And yeah, we'd love to one day get into like a proper cafe. That's definitely like one of the probably biggest like questions from our customers because they also want to like eat while they're doing things. But all in good time.
Kind of like if you're also operating a kitchen on the side, like a kitchen on the side of everything you're already doing, you'll be full on. But I can totally see it working though. Yeah.
For sure. One day we'd love to.
Yeah, that sounds so awesome.
Yeah.
And you mentioned as well that so you quit your jobs. Did you quit it in 2019, or when was it that you like? Because you've mentioned as well that you like put in all your savings towards opening your first space. So when like timeline wise, is that even a word? When did you and your partner, I suppose, your husband, when did you both quit at the same time? and went on it full time, or like how did that fit into, and also to the point where, you know, the business is making enough to pay you or pay both, or was it like phased? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Number one question I get from anybody like wanting to start something like this, because it is not
Yeah.
talked about that much. And also, you can't operate a physical, it's not e-commerce. Like you can't operate it without some sort of capital upfront. It can be a small amount, but there is capital involved. So the way that we did it was yes, we both quit our jobs in 2019, liquidated our savings. We were like, this is what is happening. We are going all in on this. And it was really, I mean, we had a lot of conviction. We had done a lot of like secret testing. We really believed in it. And I think that's like number one, you really have to believe in it. Because it's scary. It's scary. You know, my mom was not thrilled. And I was like, well, this is what we're doing. This is the plan. So that probably would have worked had COVID not happened. Like probably we would have been able to figure out a way to like start paying ourselves. But obviously with COVID, we had to not do that. We both picked up like side consulting gigs basically. And so I was helping. It also happened to be like a great time for ecom. So everybody was looking for like ecom consultants, and he was he's also like a full stack software developer. So he was picking up like small dev stuff on the side. And I think that's like not something that most entrepreneurs talk about, but like unless you know you have some sort of like funds that you can just dip into all the time, like you really do kind of have to work. It's not glamorous at all. I was working way too much. I mean, what's too much? I was doing what I needed to do to make it happen so that we could continue to like exist and like fund the business. But I ended up actually having like a great situation. So I was consulting on the side, and so was he. And then one of the consulting clients called Hill House Home, which was like also exploding in New York and has an incredible team, really wanted me to kind of join more full time, but also knew that I was building Happy Medium. And so we were able, and like, it's one of the reasons why I think Happy Medium is able to even exist is because they were so founder friendly and so supportive of like me still trying to build this thing and then also be part of their team. Like truly got so lucky with them. And what was cool was that they were a startup. They are a startup still. They exist today. I'm still friends with the team there. They were like 5 years ahead of us kind of in terms of like growth, and a totally different category. They are a fashion brand. But it was really interesting to see how they worked and how they scaled, and you know how they built a brand, and like all of having kind of all of these insights. And I was the 7th employee, and while I was there they grew from 7 to like 32. Revenue scaled like crazy, like their brand scaled like crazy. So it was like a really front row view and like how a brand is built, and a lot of great lessons. And I will also have to say that like I also worked at big brands before. Like I was at J. Crew and Ralph Lauren and Victoria's Secret and all of these great brands that even though they're fashion, there was a lot of good learnings there. So that's what I always say to people. It's like, it's okay if you have to work another job. A lot of people do, and they just don't talk about it, maybe because they're so busy and tired, which was like in my case. I would be working like, you know, a normal kind of like 9 to 5. And then I would go home here and then host figure drawing at night. And then I would work all weekend in the art cafe. And that was kind of it. It was like truly just 2.5 years of like full on many missed social engagements, you know, just having to be fully focused. And that's what was required of me at the time. And the first time that I realized that like the business started to make money, and it started to make enough money to pay for a team, but not us. So about a year in to running the space, maybe 9 months in, was the first time we hired somebody to help us with anything at all. And they were doing like studio prep, like behind the scenes stuff. And then that grew from 1 person to like 3 people part-time. And we did that for a while. And then everybody was part-time though. And then the first time we hired like a full-time salaried employee, that was like such a huge decision for us. And it came at in the beginning of 2023. So this is like a year and a half into running the business. That's in running the business, not even starting the business. Because again, we started in 2019. And that's the other thing. It's like, you know, people think of these overnight successes, but it's so much hard work and years behind the scenes of just like grinding it out before you get any sort of success. And yeah, so in the beginning of 2023, we hired 2 full-time salaried employees, and that's when I was like, okay, I have to work here full time now because they deserve like a full time boss. In the interim, my co-founder and partner Rhett stopped doing his consulting. So he was actually like full time with Happy Medium, but not paid. We didn't pay ourselves. Even then, we didn't pay ourselves for another 6 months. But I told Hill House, like, hey, I need to start to like transition back to Happy Medium full time, which had always been the conversation and had always been, we'd always had a very clear and open communication line of like, if this goes well, like, this is where I will be going and like, when. But there was still a couple months of like needing to figure out what my role. I had at that point, I was VP of revenue. So I like owned a lot of things at the business and needed to figure out like who would replace me there. And so in the summer of 2023, is when the first time we ever paid ourselves. And we paid ourselves basically nothing, but it was essentially all we needed to pay our rent and like our credit card debt from like starting the business and like live essentially. And that was a huge moment. And it was so scary because it's like, oh, I mean, all of these things are scary. Like, I think it can look very glamorous on the outside, but like it's terrifying to hire your first employee and be responsible for their livelihoods, and then to be responsible for your own livelihood in a way that like, you weren't before is crazy. So yeah, it took us a solid 4 years into the business to actually be able to pay ourselves. And it took us another year to be able to pay ourselves, like not quite literally almost nothing. And like, I mean, even today we don't pay ourselves a crazy amount. So it's not, the big time is still coming, but I'm still very proud that we're able to, we have health insurance through our business and, all of these things. So it's pretty cool, but it takes a while.
I totally feel you. I feel like, especially because when you said like you had a lot of demand there, I feel like sometimes that is such a blessing and a curse, because when you have that high demand, like there's so many things that can break, and you've done so well to like keep up with it, but then like, also at the cost of all the risky things that you had to do in the other jobs that you've had to pick up to like bring this vision to life. And it's
totally.
Yeah, it's really inspiring, because I feel like that happened to me a little bit when I started my own like workshop business. Like I've grew very like a lot, a totally different scale to what you guys are doing, because like you're in New York and I'm in a small city in New Zealand. But I feel like, yeah, I've grown like so fast so quickly that kind of the experience, like I couldn't keep up with growing it at that pace. And then also like the experiences itself, there was just so many mistakes happening. And I guess it's one of the things that I wanted to ask you, kind of two sort of questions around the same thing. One is, how did that demand come from? Was it just like organic from, I don't know, social media, or the sharing with your network, or was it like more like conscious, as in like, did you do specific things to generate that demand? So that's one side of the things I wanted to ask. And then the other side is, what were the things that you think that like didn't work so well, or that the high demand made you overlook, and if that makes sense?
Totally. We grew very organically. To this day, we still don't do paid ads. I have no illusions that will be the case forever. Like when we open a place outside of New York, like, we'll probably need to dip into that, or like partner with influencers and things like that. But a couple things help us to keep our marketing expenses down. The first is word of mouth is enormous for us, which is why we really prefer to think of ourselves in terms of being a hospitality company, because if you don't have a great experience here, you are not going to tell your friends, you're not going to come back. And like, that is being able to retain and really delight our customers is like the core of our growth strategy, really. And that's everything from like what our spaces look like. And, we probably we build out all of our spaces with our team now. And like at the beginning, it was my husband doing it and like building the furniture, which keeps costs down. But then like the decor and like the look and feel and like all of these things that are just so important to like how people feel when they walk in. And so while that's not technically a marketing expense, it's like, we will definitely spend more on like making a vibe, if you will, because it comes back in spades. And then the other thing is organic social. So like run the marketing here still to this day. Most of the, not always, I have a team now who helps with like getting the content, and they'll post things sometimes, but most of the posts I would say are like in my own voice. And like me, just sometimes I'll even be in the bathtub and be like, you know what, ship it and just send it and like not take it too seriously. And like those are usually the ones, like I think people, I think it's funny actually that you started by saying that you didn't put a face to the business for a long time. And that's like kind of intentional because we want people to feel like Happy Medium is like your cool best friend and your cool art friend who's like invited to all the art parties and the art gallery openings, but they're like taking you with them. And I think it's hard to do that when there is too much of a person as the brand. Also as an actual person, like it's scary to put yourself out there as the face of a brand in a way. And I've seen a lot of people get burned that way. And so it's not, I am interested in like growing my own personal brand as Tayler, but not necessarily Tayler as the face of Happy Medium. So that's another thing. But yeah, or organic posts will usually go like, something will go viral and that's how we'll get like a ton of new inbound. But then we also have these great price lines and these great like experiences where we offer so many different things that you can come for so many different things. Like you can come for, usually people come to the art cafe first and they're like, this is amazing. What else can I come to? And then they'll come to figure drawing. And so we just have this like portfolio of experiences, which also helps. I think if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to have people coming back a lot. I think also what we're doing is really unique in New York. Like there's not a lot of other places that you can go do something, have an experience, a shared experience that doesn't revolve around food and drink. And I think that's something that was intentional from us from the start of like, we love figure drawing and we wanted it to feel like an experience. Like that's what we wanted to do after work. We wanted to go out to dinner maybe, and then or have dinner at home and then go to this like experience and almost feel like the same kind of feel when you go to a movie or a show or something like that, but you're making things. Like how cool is that? So that's on the growth side. All organic. We'll definitely do paid eventually. But for now, we just talk about what we do and make sure to like center that around how that helps our customers. Because at the end of the day, that's all they care about, And then mistakes. Great question. I have made every mistake in the book, like truly across the board. I'm pretty resilient to that feeling, but at the beginning there's a feeling where you're doing things that you don't know how you're doing, or you feel like you're drowning because you have so much demand, or maybe you don't have demand and you're like, what the hell am I doing wrong? And it's like a truly like sickening feeling almost. And there's no way that I have found that, I mean, you can read books or you can read resources, you can watch, podcasts, listen to podcasts, things like that. But I don't know. Every situation is unique. So, I mean, a couple of the biggest mistakes we've made. Let's see. Team building, hardest thing in the world. Could not do this without my team. I had managed people before. I'd never managed a team this size or doing this specific thing. To this day, I still get it wrong. I have disappointed my team so many different times for so many different reasons. I hope and think, and a lot of them are still around. So, there's also some positives, but that is probably the worst type of mistake because, being a leader in the business, whether you like it or not, and whether you actually directly manage people or not, like you are responsible for their lives in a certain way. And I think that is like one of the greatest responsibilities I have. And like one of the things that I take so seriously, and it's so difficult. And I think even like, professional managers or professional whatever, like they make mistakes too. So things happen like when humans are involved. So that's one thing, who to hire, how to onboard, letting them down like across the board. That's a huge and because we've scaled so quickly and it's such a human intensive business, like we've had to grow the team we're like 60-ish people now, I think. And so that's been
60. 60. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Not all full-time salaried, but between our part-time team and our full-time team, and then it's probably bigger than that if you account for like the models and the teachers we work with who are not like Happy Medium employees, and like our cleaning teams and things like that. Like, so that's huge. And I think that has definitely, hands down, the business is kind of like organically grown, but having to grow as a manager and like, I'm still a work in progress. So that's number one. And then number two, on the customer side, we always mess up in some way. I think the greatest example of this is like when we opened our pottery studio. We had done pottery before. We had never run a pottery studio or had our own pottery studio. And at the beginning, we really sucked at making or like finishing the pottery pieces. It was also the very first time that we had gone from people coming to make art and we had to make sure the experience was amazing, and then they left. and we just had to be responsible for the time that they were here, to all of a sudden we were having to take something that they made, that they put, so much time and effort and creative energy into, and we had to finish it and get it back to them. And we were messing that up. We were like, had so many hiccups around, and because we're stubborn and like do everything ourselves, like, and that's, I think, also not only just stubborn, but like when you're a resource constraint, you can't always hire, a pottery expert to come in and consult for you. And like sometimes the most efficient way, resource wise, is to do it yourself and learn very quickly, even though it's also maybe the most painful. But for us, we were like, we can't afford to bring on like a whole team of ceramicists. We need to just figure this out. YouTube, university out the wazoo, trial and error, things like that. But the first couple of months of like running the pottery studio, like I have to tell you, like so many of our pieces would get destroyed because we would like overfire them or underfire them or like all of these things. And that was such a painful experience because we had to talk to customers. And I think, if you're going through that, we haven't had quite all of our other experiences we're able to test and kind of like learn. That one also grew so quickly. We like introduced it not thinking it would like totally take off as fast as it did. But our secret weapon to that, or like kind of the antidote to that, is if you have a great relationship with your customers, if you are trying, if you are honest, if you do right by them, they will give you so much grace. And we're really, really, really lucky that we have some of the kindest, just most amazing people as customers that we could go to them and be like, we really messed up and we are so sorry. And like your gorgeous pot that you made here, we completely destroyed it. We're learning too. Will you come back? We've learned some things. We can get it right this time. We've refunded you. Come back on the house. And like, so that is also, a financial consideration of like, I don't even want to know how much money we like refunded customers. But it doesn't matter because for us, it's more about the long-term relationship with them. And if you can like turn a negative experience into a positive experience, they will remember that so much longer and be so much more loyal to you as a business than if you just say like, oh, sorry, we messed this up. Here's a refund. Talk to you never. So that was like a very good kind of training for us as a team of like how to handle the most difficult customer. Here's another example. We recently, this happened like last month, we accidentally double booked because we still do all of our bookings via DM in most cases. We accidentally double booked a wedding and a birthday at the same time at the same location, which we couldn't do obviously. And the wedding had been planned for a year. And so obviously it was super disappointing to go back to the party girl who had a party of 20 booked, had booked her whole kind of day around coming to Happy Medium, all this stuff. And we were like, shit, what do we do? So we weren't open at our new location yet, but we figured out, we gave her 3 options. 1, we can host you at this location, which was not the location she was trying to be at, and book you a party bus and party bus you to your dinner after. The second option, one of my friends has a business close to where the other businesses. And I had asked her for a favor of if could we rent out her garden because she wanted a garden party. It ended up raining. So everything ended up working out really well. And my friend said, yes, this is not something that like, is publicly available to book or anything. And then the third option was to actually host it at our newest location, which was not open yet. And we were not planned to be open for another 2 weeks. And she chose that third option to come host it at our Williamsburg workshop. So which meant that, we now had a 3-day timeline where we thought we had like a 3-week timeline. And it's those moments where like you have to go above and beyond as a business owner to be like, okay, I'm going to not sleep for 2 days and like totally make this work and make this an incredible experience. And like, she's going to remember it forever. And that's what happened. She came, she had the best time ever. It was so special and so kind of like exclusive and cool. And it's like, those are the brand moments that really build your brand. Because they compound, and then also you have 50 of those eventually, and then that's what people remember, and then they tell their friends, and then it becomes part of your lore, and like that's how it goes.
Yeah, that was great like creativity in terms of like solving a pretty kind of tricky situation to be in. So that makes
totally
that just shows like your creative brain kind of working. I feel like you've already like covered quite a lot of the questions that I had just in the things that you kind of kept, kind of came around the conversation. But was there like a point where, because you've opened was the demand there like right when you opened the first store? Or was there a point where like you realized that it could really scale? Because I guess you always had like the long-term vision, but was there a point where you kind of like realized, oh, okay, this can grow much further.
I'm so glad you asked that. I'm actually going like mini viral on TikTok right now about a post that I posted this morning about this because no, when we first opened, figure drawing was like doing pretty good, but we were hosting it once a week and we would have maybe like between 20 or 15 to 30 people. And then Art Cafe was open on the weekends and nobody, really nobody would come. And it, which was so discouraging because I was so tired and exhausted at the time. And so was Rhett because we would be working all week and then we would be open on the weekends. And part of it is trial and error. Like we were open way longer than we needed to be and at really random hours. Like I think we were open 10 to 10 because we just didn't know when we should be open. So that's why a lot of the stuff kind of comes with time and you refine your business over time. Another reason why is because I was scared to even charge anybody for it because I thought that it would be so misunderstood of like what it was and like, oh, but you have to come and but then you pay and like, wait, what is it? And all of this stuff. And so, but that actually kind of made it lose its, like we were hoping people would pay. It was almost like a suggested donation type situation. And we were hoping people would pay. Ultimately, a couple of things happened. So number one, we had an influencer. We didn't know she was an influencer at the time come in, who was like a local like things to do in New York. It was this service called Nudge. And this woman's name is Katie. And we're actually friends with her to this day. She came and she heard about us organically. So she must have heard about us through like, you know, it was her job to basically find cool new experiences in New York City. And she came in, went to figure drawing, and then added that to the Nudge, which was like a text service that like tells you cool things to do in New York. And that was like the first time that we went viral. And I remember sitting in bed and we were exhausted, which was the story of our life for the first 3 years. And to this day, we had like a Slack notification anytime anybody was on our website because it didn't happen that often. And so we would be like, oh, that's cool. Like somebody's on our website, and it was going bananas. And we had never experienced that before. And we were like, something's happening. Like what is happening? Where are we? And like, you don't always know why you're going viral or like where it's coming from sometimes. And so we were trying to figure out like what the hell is going on. And we were selling out of figure drawing so quickly that we had to we only had 4 for the month, but we like had to very quickly basically book more models and like put more up because we wanted to take advantage of this moment of like figure drawing. So that was the first time we ever went viral. And it like was totally amazing. And we were like, okay, so there's really something here. Like people want this. And then it became more of like a marketing problem of like, actually what we're doing is great. I think so many people kind of stop what they're doing before they've really given it a chance to get out there in the world. And that was kind of like the theme of my TikTok today was like, you're not immediately going to be successful. Like people have to find out about it. Right. And so, but the more it's hard in that beginning time and you have to have conviction in yourself and what you're doing and courage and like be okay feeling silly because it does feel silly to be like the only person being like, this is amazing and you should come, and nobody, you know, at a certain point you like make it and then it's like normalized, but before not everything is just happens that way. So that was one part. And then the thing with Art Cafe is we started charging for it. We made it even more like we were kind of like half committed on the Art Cafe concept where we were like, oh, it's like a cafe, but like what cafe do you walk into that you don't have to pay for anything? Like it didn't jive. And so we finally, Rhett was like, let's just actually start charging for this and like see if it works. And then same thing happened. Like it was no longer kind of like a pay what you want. It was like it was as close to a cafe as we could possibly get it. And then that's when it also became more understandable for people. And then that marketing kind of piece also fell in. And so that's like, I spend a lot of my time because I do marketing. I do all of communications here. And I think that like the way that you can communicate about your business, about what you have to offer to people, sound bites you can give them to tell their friends and their people, like all of that is so important to success. And it doesn't come naturally. Like I worked with big brands. I had always had copywriting teams. I understood copywriting, but that's something that like maybe if you don't come from that background, you don't have. And I would say to anybody who's starting a business, like focus on communications and how it's visual communications, it's your graphic design, it's your captions, it's how you describe your business. It's like all of that, the whole package of like, can you talk to people about your business? Like, you know, it helps. Like we talked to hundreds of thousands of people, like Rhett and I, the first 2 years where it was mostly just us, like over and over and over and over again. And you start to refine and notice the things that people pick up and what they say back to you and like how they describe it. Maybe they're with their friend and they're like, oh, this is happy medium. You should always be listening to that. And like also measuring that against like, is that what you want people to be saying? Is that in line with what you're building? You know, can you give them something else to say? Like all of that type of stuff. So those were definitely like the hard days, is when you are just starting and not everybody fully gets it or believes it yet, but you just have to keep going because nobody else is going to champion your business for you.
No, totally. I totally see
So
what you mean. Like
yeah.
I've worked in marketing for a long time as well, and I think like that imports like how you position and like kind of package, even like figuratively package something that's an experience. It's so important
Mhm.
because if people don't understand what it is, it's so much harder, to convince them to come, right? Like, yeah, there's this whole
Totally.
thing about like
Totally.
confused people don't buy, and like I really think that that's the thing.
Yes, exactly.
So it makes total
Exactly.
sense how it played out for you. I've also noticed that you have like a kids experience or a kids side of thing. Like, is that
Yeah.
new or because it was much smaller?
Yeah, kind of. So we like are very specifically adult oriented. For this reason of like we see so much for kids. There's so much out there, supplies, experiences. You know, kids are also just that we have so much to learn from them because they're so uninhibited with their arts and crafts and like really just it's such a like joie de vivre for them in a way where I think adults get so like, oh my God, like am I doing this right? So we made an intentional decision when we started to be a 16 and up venue, partially because we just wanted adults to like have their space and time, essentially, and then also because when you are selling things to kids there's so many, and rightfully so many more restrictions and considerations and things like that. For example, we make our own watercolors, we make our own oil
Wow.
pastels. If we were to, excuse me, market and sell that to kids, we would have to get that accredited. Like we use all non-toxic ingredients, but you have to have this like
Yeah.
official seal to be able to do that. So we were like, you know what, let's keep it simple. Let's keep it a adult or like almost 16 and up venue. And then when we opened our Greenpoint, it was never a problem here, really. I mean, like people, yes, it was disappointing sometimes, but you know, we had places to refer. That's the other thing. It's like if your customers are disappointed because you can't be everything for everybody, but what you can do is be helpful to people that you are not the right fit for. So like when parents would come to us and be disappointed that we don't have like kids events, there's tons of cool kids events here in the city, so we would just like refer them to that, and that's an easy way to kind of like not make it a disappointing experience for them, just give them a different solution. So that's what we were doing, and then we opened Greenpoint, and we learned a lot from opening Greenpoint. It's such a different neighborhood, it's such a different community there, and it really does feel more like a neighborhood vibe versus here it's a little bit more of like, I don't know, it's still a neighborhood but it's just a different vibe, and there are so many families there and we love all of them and they're so amazing, but we still didn't want to like introduce the kid concept, and so we instead started Happy Medium Smalls is what we call it, and it's our art cafe for kids. So there's a full separate menu and it's all kid friendly. Nothing of it that we make, we buy all of it and like serve them, and it's a once monthly experience where kids and adults like they have to be supervised, like come and basically it's the same concept though. So we do that once a month out of our Greenpoint location, which we love. And we've heard so much from so many people like, oh my God, kids is such a huge opportunity. And I think it definitely is, and something we're excited to explore kind of down the line. But we have so much more to explore within the world of like adults that we want to
Yeah.
get to
Yeah,
first.
I totally
But
see like
yeah,
there's always so many sort of routes you can take your business and so many ideas, especially when you're a creative
totally.
person, like there's always a million ideas that you can work towards and can get a bit chaos. So I totally feel you. In terms of like you already mentioned kind of the challenges, or kind of mistakes from growing so fast and managing the business. But in terms of running the space itself, what are like some sort of behind the scenes, like sort of challenges that people don't necessarily see as a guest when they come
Mm-hmm.
in, that you've helped to deal with?
Mm-hmm. Um, like HVAC and plumbing, you know, like literally the kind of like fundamentals of the space, because again, we don't have like a super, and all of our leases are triple net lease, which means we're responsible for all repairs, everything. So there's like nobody to call. So my husband, Rhett, bless him, has like become an expert in HVAC and plumbing, because those can be really like insane costs, that are so necessary and like required, you know, like we replaced the AC on the first and basement floor of this building, and it was like the most money we've ever invested, and it's there's not like a huge, guests obviously notice it. It was so hot down there because we didn't have a functioning AC. So like, yes, they'll notice it, but doesn't necessarily like propel your business. It's not like we're going to make 3x because we put in AC. It's just kind of table stakes. So like that, not only just like understanding, and especially if you're running like a physical location, like how the building works, but then also all of the maintenance-y things that you have to do to like maintain it has been an eye-opener, for sure. And then permitting, and I'm sure this is different like no matter where you are, but in New York City at least, businesses are responsible for, so it's like permitting, but also just like what businesses are responsible for. So for example, like businesses, they don't own them, but they're responsible for the sidewalks and up to 18 inches into the street. So like if a water main breaks, which is something that we have almost had, and the city needs to send a crew, but they need to like, get under your sidewalk, like you as a business are responsible for all of that cost, basically. And that's something I just like didn't know. And it's given me a huge appreciation for other small businesses, because there are so many things that small businesses have to do that are ordinances by the city, that I would just assume as kind of like a casual non-business owner that that's like, oh, the city takes care of that. Like trash, there's no commercial trash. Like business owners have to pay for their own trash. But there's ordinances with the city of like where and when and who and like all this stuff. So you have to kind of like work within their framework, but it's a lot of kind of just like small costs that add up over time, that you're responsible for. And so sometimes we'll get like, like a small notice from the city that they saw like a rat hole in a sidewalk in front of our building, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that was like something I need to know about. So there's tons of stuff like that. Taxes, same thing, like there's random niche taxes that as you grow bigger you kind of unlock these privileges to pay these more taxes. So fun. So we have like an incredible accountant, but every year he'll call and be like, all right, so you've hit X, Y, and Z. We got to talk about this. And it's just like, oh, I had no idea. Like, great. So I would say those are the kind of the unexpected things that all survivable and all part of, my saying is that showbiz, baby. Like anytime anything comes up and I'm like, well, that sucks. It's just like, that's part of it and whatever, but learnings for sure.
Yeah. That's kind of the hidden unsexy things of like running a business. It's always like the background stuff, because I guess when the challenges are around like the experience itself or the art, it is a challenge and it can go wrong, but it's always like an exciting challenge to solve, right? Because it's so connected to creativity and what you do. But when it's like, oh, the air conditioner is like, it's not great, but it comes with the job, I suppose.
It goes.
I wanted to ask as well, like I'm mindful that we're now like an hour, so but I still have a few questions. If you good to keep going.
Yep.
Around like your pop-up space, how did that like came about and how do you run? Because I think I saw it was on Bloomingdale's. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
I'm not, I've never been to New York, so
totally.
I know of Bloomingdale's, but I can't really like picture it in my mind. So if you could like, because I don't know if you've done other pop-ups in the past, but if you could like explain a bit more how that came about, what is the purpose, and how kind of running it, I'll be super keen to hear.
Yeah. Huge opportunity. I mean, we tend to like say yes to opportunities as they come and then kind of figure it out later. And that's definitely my advice to anybody, because I think you never know where things lead. So Bloomingdale's approached us at the beginning of the year. We've never done a pop-up. I've been skeptical on pop-ups because knowing from fashion world how much they cost versus how much like you're kind of expected to make. And so the reason we said yes to this one, because we get asked all the time of like, hey, I have this space in Portland. Will you come and do like a 2-week pop-up? But I would love to, but there's the focus thing that we were just talking about it's oftentimes the things that you say no to like make sure that you're focusing on the things that either are really driving your business forward or kind of like serving the goals that you have for the business, even if that's not financial. And when you take on too many things, it's just too much. So, Bloomingdale's approached us and a couple of things made it really appealing. One, Bloomingdale's is like such a historic kind of like New York iconic brand, that it was really interesting to us to partner with them. And the second thing was we are not even paying for the space. And that was like a huge part of it. We were still responsible for the build out, and all of the staffing costs and like everything associated with operating it, which is obviously like very consequential. But because it's such a small amount of time and we're kind of the spender for this larger thing, they essentially like let us invest via the build out of the space, which was also like pretty considerable. So we opened at the beginning of September. And it's also, the third reason is because it's in a really different location than where we are. So it's not close to any of our locations, close being relative, but it definitely is kind of like a different customer up there. And so we were excited to learn how to operate it, what the, because we can build a financial model kind of assuming rent, if we were to do this elsewhere, what it was like to like hire for such a short amount of time and like manage and all of that. And then also we were curious about the neighborhood. It's on the Upper East Side, or it's like it's close to the Upper East Side. So that's like, has always been something interesting for us. It's like, do we want to be up there one day? And it's been an incredible partnership so far. I mean, it's been such a pleasure to work with them. We also we do a lot of private events and like private workshops. And so we're getting to partner with a lot of their brands. In October in particular, we have like a lot of brand partnerships where we're hosting really interesting, different creative activities because we are trying to get it as close. Like we have one that's like scarf painting. Like we don't offer that normally, but it was something they wanted to do because it's a scarf brand. And we were like, that's so cool. Like, yes, we can totally facilitate this. So we've been able to kind of like learn a lot of new skills as a business. We've met so many incredible customers that are up there that have always wanted to come, but have never been able to come down to see us. So like that has been awesome. And then, yeah, we're getting kind of like at least walking away with an understanding of like what a financial model would look like if we were to do a pop-up somewhere else, which I think was like so valuable to us. And yeah, I've loved it. And like the whole team in terms of like staffing it and running it, we decided not to like hire a proper manager because it was a 2-month kind of thing. But we, as a that is something as like a management team, we're all kind of like guiding the people who work there. And we're all kind of like, I was there on Friday and on Sunday working. So like, that's been interesting. And we're hoping to retain them all because we're about to head into our busiest season and we'll actually need more team support at our other locations. So it was like really, and I don't know if that would be the case if it was summer, but it happened really nicely where we were like, hey, come work at this pop-up and we have like places for you after and all of that. And it's been really wonderful and a really, really cool experience so far.
That sounds so fun. I want to go to this. I just need to book a ticket to New York. So you are still you said it's still like very hands-on in running and running,
yes.
Not just the business, because I guess, it could be very hands-on running the business, but running like the sessions and facilitating itself. You? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And my husband, I mean, we both still are, number one, that's the thing. If you're running like a physical business, people get sick, people are out. So like, even though I don't manage the locations and there's like a couple people in between me, like sometimes it happens that like they're down and they need help. And so as a business owner, I think there's 2 ways you can go. You can say like, not my problem, let your team figure it out. Or you can just say like, yeah, I'm going to help out. I think those are like it is your problem. At the end of the day, Ivan, it is your problem. And I also love those because then, there's nothing better than working with customers directly and I think the more that your business grows, like the harder it is to do that. And it's for a couple of reasons. One, obviously you're getting like live feedback from them like immediately and come away with like so many different ideas of how to make their experience even better. You see how the team's doing, like, all of that is like so important and you don't really get it unless you're in the midst of it. And then the second thing is like, I am so inspired and like energized. Like running a business is so difficult and hard and taxing. And like, a lot of times I tell people like, don't even start. Like if you're not fully committed to feeling like the highest highs and the lowest lows, like don't even do it. But like being with customers is truly like, they're having so much fun and that just gives me so much joy. And so it's just like, I walk away being like, oh, all of this is worth it. Like if I can make these 50 people who are here with me have like the most incredible time or like, the best birthday ever, like it's so worth it to me. And then we also, so there's those times where it's like normal business operations just needs help because people are out or sick or whatever. But then there's also, we do everything new, like ourselves. So, and part of this is kind of going back to the pottery studio thing. Partially it's like great for keeping costs low is if you're doing it yourself, but also, especially if you're trying to do something that's a little bit different, which in our case, we always are trying to rethink like how adults relate to creativity. And so, it's not just a pottery studio. We give you unlimited clay and your first piece is fully glazed and fired. And like, we have a whole, how we teach you that's like designed for beginners. Like we're always trying to find different ways because like, obviously more people would be creative and engaging with creative things if this was a problem that was already solved. And so it's obviously not. So like, how can we solve it? And then we make every mistake possible and like are able to, we call it like, it's not our quote, but there's this quote from Ray and Charles Eames that's don't delegate understanding. And like, that is totally a principle to our business as founders, where we need to understand all of it and we need to understand how it works. Like, how could you, I don't even know how people do it. I'm like, how could you possibly hire a manager to run a new part of your business if you don't even know how your business runs? And so that's been kind of like our principle since forever. So anytime we do anything new, which we're about to open a gift shop at both of our like permanent, maybe all three, I don't know, we're figuring that out, but at least the Manhattan and the Greenpoint one, we're opening a gift shop for the holiday season, which will be kind of the first time that we're selling products. And I'm working it for the first 2 weeks because I need to write all of the product descriptions. I'm curious what customers are asking, what they're picking up, what they're buying, what they're not buying, why, to report back to the team of like, this is what we need, this is what we don't need, we need to change this. But then also like, how should anybody who's working there know how to behave if they've never done it before, and if I've never done it before and I can't teach them how to like sell. And so yeah, that's, it's always just so important. So basically anything new that we're doing, whether that's a new class or a new workshop or a new experience or a new private client we're taking on or a new whatever, like we are pretty adamant that we're the first to do it. And then it also protects our team because like we're going to make a million mistakes. And like, if we are making it,
Yeah.
they don't feel that
they'll be
pain,
better,
like that they,
I guess, better trained or better equipped to
Yeah.
then deal with it. It makes total
Mhm.
sense, I think. Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
great way to go about it. And with the team so big, so I have like another 2 or 3 questions before I let you go.
Mhm.
With the team so big and like across the many locations, like how do you ensure, because you mentioned like be in the spaces yourself or be more in one space, like how do you ensure like consistency? Well, I don't know if all your spaces are consistent with each other, but if they are, like how do you ensure consistency or kind of like, do they all follow kind of the same processes, and how do you guarantee like the quality, I guess, around
Yeah.
the different
Yeah. They all, I mean, so one of them is like so new that we've hosted whatever 4 events out of there. Like
the
that'll
Williamsburg?
be, that's to be determined.
Yeah.
The Williamsburg one, yeah. It's like the 2 locations, they do operate kind of differently because they also need different things. Like even down to like one has a garden,
Mm,
one doesn't. So I think you have to build systems that can like, and we're not perfect at this, and like definitely like this is one of the things we need to figure out as a team and like document, not even just figure out, but like actually document and like have a playbook for before we expand more physically. And it's like we need to ensure the consistent quality of the experience. That 100%, there's no question in my mind. Like if you're a customer and you come to this happy medium and then you go to Greenpoint, or maybe you go to one in the future that's somewhere else, you should get the same quality of experience. But I do think that there should be some flexibility in how that happens. I mean, even within teams, just because teams are different, people are different. Like, you know, if you're so rigid that you can't work with human beings and like, and spaces and what they need and like all of that, like it's going to be really difficult to build a system that scales. So we're more focused on like what are the things that absolutely have to happen to deliver an incredible experience, and then making sure that all the teams at all those locations know that and then are reinforced and like kind of have that. But that is ultimately like what is most important to us, is that the customer walks away, the team's happy, and the customer walks away with like this incredible
yeah, that makes
experience.
sense. Yeah, it's really cool. I'm so I guess starstruck would be the right, like maybe I don't know what's the right word, but just so impressed, I guess, like how, because I know you probably feel like it's been a long time because it's been a few years, but at the same time feel like such a short time for how much you've done. And I think it's very impressive, especially like in a creative field. You mentioned that you were going now into the busiest season. So does that mean that do you have like slower months, in those slower months, like is it much slower, and do you kind of struggle when it's slower, and how do you keep, the business kind of momentum in running? Because I guess you're in a really big city, so I don't know if that even makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, it totally does. We have seasonality in this business, and I would say that like most businesses do, even outside of creative fields, and it's really easy to feel like panicked when you're in a slower season. But understanding and having kind of a holistic view of the year and like what you're offering, and then trying to make the most of those like slower seasons. So like for us, our slower season is the summer, and it's because we have so many customers that are local that are gone. They're on vacation, they're traveling, they're, have also all these other kind of like competing activities. So, if we think of ourselves as a hospitality experience, in the summer, you suddenly have rooftop barbecues and you have movies in the park and you have day trips up, state, and like all of these other kind of things that you could be doing to fill your time and all of that. And so, yeah, we're definitely slower in the summer. We make sure we're profitable like for the whole year. And then there are some months where you just have to eat it basically, and you like need to make that up in other months. And then there's also small things you can do with like staffing or, your opening hours. Like we have summer hours and we have winter hours, like small changes like that, to make sure that the business is being efficient and you are kind of like trying to maximize profitability and all of that without kind of sacrificing, your mission, which for us is like to be open. We never like close or anything. And then we do with the team, we try to use the summer months to prep. So we like installed that AC over the summer, like things like that, where we're like, okay, we're a little bit quieter. We can like invest in the space or invest in like, maybe you need to build out new back shelving, or like maybe you want to introduce a couple new menu items in the busy season. Like, let's figure those out now. So we're constantly trying to like prep basically for our busiest season. Like, let's get new people in and trained and onboarded so that come busy season, they're like ready to go. Like, that's kind of how we think about it, at least, is like that. And then I think in terms of how the business grows, like I'm very curious if we open in a really hot place. Like I grew up part of my childhood in Texas, where nobody does anything in the summer because it is so hot that you can't really go outside. Like unlike here where all you want to do is be outside because it's a really lovely summer. But I am curious, like, oh, if we were to open in Texas, like would we actually see kind of the opposite, where the summer's the busiest and then the fall and spring are like pretty dead, and then this winter, who knows? And then if that's the case, like if you think of your business growing, like how and where do you grow when? Like in the same way that we wanted to have Greenpoint because we wanted this like outdoor expression of the brand that helped to make our summers not as slow, because we finally had like a place where people could go and make stuff outside. So yeah, we're curious about that. I don't know. I have no idea. And I'm not sure if it's like city based or like climate based, or maybe it's offering based. So like we're introducing a gift shop because people want to buy stuff from us. Like they come here, they have a great time, and then they want to buy our watercolors. We don't offer that until very soon. And now we're starting to offer that. So I'm also curious, like, the kind of weeks around the holidays, like Thanksgiving in November, and then Christmas and Hanukkah in December, people also leave. So those are also pretty slow. We tend to not offer too many things besides Art Cafe during those weeks because we just know most of our customers are like traveling or going home. But I am curious if like having a gift shop that we'll see like more of a spike in people coming to buy gifts. Like, I don't know, but that's what we're
Is the gift shop part of the Williamsburg new space?
It's actually going to go into this space, our Manhattan location, our Greenpoint location. And then we were not planning to do one in Williamsburg, but now I think we might, because we have just incredible foot traffic. That's the other thing. It's like you can have an idea or a dream and you have to stay true to your brand vision. But like, look at what your customers are doing and like change your plan, because we get just so many walk-ins at the Williamsburg location that we're like, we need to have something here for them, because right now we're just like, look at our space and like come in 3 weeks to this one workshop, and we're like, no, we need to like rethink that. But we're carving out essentially like it's going to be like a walk through the gift shop type of vibe, and we'll have our art supplies, kits, gifts, ceramics, books, customization options. So like you can customize a journal, there's a charm bar, like all kinds of things. So it's a little bit more like drop-in art supplies, but then also like we're launching, I don't know, do you have DoorDash in New Zealand? We're doing DoorDash, okay. So we're going to be on DoorDash, which is like a fun, silly idea. But like if you're home and you want to have like a crafty night with your gals, like you can order us on DoorDash and we'll bring the kits to you. So like, things like that I think will be fun, and it'll be a different way. And then also for people not in New York, like right now, our customers are all
Yeah.
in New York. They have to be, like, whether they live here or they're traveling here. But like, I couldn't really deliver an awesome happy medium experience to you yet, but like very
Yeah.
soon we'll have that, so we can kind of ship it and like, be
Yeah.
able to service customers that are
That's so
everywhere.
exciting. So with the gift shop, are you producing, I guess you're probably not producing all of it because you just mentioned like charms in
Mhm.
journals, but are you
Mhm.
producing some of the items
Yeah.
and then stocking other
Mhm.
brands?
Totally.
And then also,
Exactly.
because you mentioned like you just wrote a book, or created a book. I know there's a book, but
Yeah.
I missed that in my research. I only like became aware of it when you mentioned it.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us more about this book? Of
I
course.
would love to tell you about it. So yes, we are making a lot of the products, not all of it,
Yeah.
because we couldn't possibly. We really do want this to feel like a really meaningful art supply
Hmm.
shop, basically, and stationery shop, and gift shop. And so we're making as much as we can. We're making most of the ceramics. We are make that you can buy. Like, obviously you can come paint your own ceramics, but you'll also be able to buy ceramics from us. We're making all the art supplies that we can make in house. Like, we couldn't make colored pencils because it is, look into it, it's hard, and expensive. We run into these like insane MOQs, and we're like, we can't do that. So, but we're making as much as we can. And then, it'll be interesting to see what people like want to walk away with. And then our book, which I'm so excited, today is the
Oh
publishing
my
date. Actually,
gosh.
after this, I'm going to go look at it in a
Oh my
real
gosh.
bookstore, which will be crazy. It's a
Oh.
creativity journal. So it's basically everything we've learned from the past 4 years kind of distilled into our philosophy on creativity. Very actionable, very much like
Hmm.
homework, basically, of like, oh, are you feeling uninspired, not sure what to do next, out of touch with your creativity, or maybe you are in touch with it but you just need a little bit of reinforcement. And so it's a very practical guide. Like, the title was almost a practical guide to creativity, because it is just really like a creative coach in your pocket, and it helps you walk through, our approach. We've seen it happen. It's kind of what we do when we're designing classes and things like that, how we're thinking about it, and just good reminders of like, you are creative. It takes courage to be creative, and then a bunch of prompts and activities to help you kind of like exercise that. So it launches today, everywhere books are sold, and then we'll have that downstairs as well. But it'll be one
Yeah.
of like mini books. Like, we have a couple of other ones as well, art books, other creativity guides, because that's the thing. It's like you need a lot of a
Hmm.
range, basically, for
Yeah.
people to select from. So
Yeah,
check it
I
out.
need this book. I need this book. I don't know if you'll ship it internationally, but I guess I must come to New York to get this book and visit you
Yeah,
guys. That sounds so
sounds like
exciting.
it.
If you have like any links for people to check out the book, feel free to like send it to me and I can put
Yes,
it like on the podcast description. Before
amazing.
I let you go, I have just one last
Awesome.
question, which I feel like you kind of
Yeah.
already touched in it throughout the things you say, but if you specifically were giving advice to someone who wants to start um, either a similar business to yours or like, a business around providing
Mhm.
creative experiences, what would that one piece of
Mhm.
advice be?
The one I said today, and I firmly believe this on TikTok, is get over yourself. And I mean this in the kindest way,
Yep.
which is just do it. Like, it is, there's so many people who are afraid to start something because they're afraid of being embarrassed. And like, it's easy to look at Happy Medium and our journey and be like, okay, well, yeah, this is cool. People know it, like whatever. But that, obviously was not the case. Like, there was that 6 month period of time when it was just me talking into the abyss on social media, spending money on a place where 3 people would come. And that's like such a painful, very painful and likely journey that you'll go on. And I think being, very eyes wide open going into that, and knowing that that's part of the process, and being okay with it and not giving up. And that takes, a certain level of essentially getting over yourself, meaning like, who cares? Like, if you can get past that and put it out there anyway and continue to stand by it every single day, like, eventually people are going to see it and they're going to notice it, and people are going to come and they're going to love it, and then it all kind of happens. But just get over yourself. Just do it anyway. It's like, you will be cringe or you will feel embarrassed, but guess what? Nobody ever died of
True.
embarrassment. So,
That is
you
true.
know,
That is true. Yeah,
yeah,
that's such great advice. I think that's like the number one thing that stops people from doing something creative. It's like,
totally.
I guess, the fear of embarrassment. Yeah,
Yes.
I totally feel you. That would be also my number one advice. Just get over yourself and do it.
Yeah.
You're not gonna die. Thank you so much for. Is there anything else? I feel like we've covered quite a lot. I mean, I could keep asking you questions the rest of the day, but I want to be respectful of your time. But is there anything else that you feel like we haven't covered that you would like to talk about or share?
No, this is
Amazing.
wonderful.
Well,
Thank you.
thank
I
you
really
so
enjoyed it.
much for coming onto the podcast. People are gonna love it. I feel like this is a masterclass on its own, and I've learned so much, so I know people are gonna learn it. So yeah, thank you so much.
Aw.
I will wrap it up, and I'm gonna stop the recording, but don't leave yet because they're still uploading it.
Perfect.
So yeah, thank you so much, Tyler. I will catch
Okay.
you later.
Awesome. I'll talk to you later.